Howdy, sir. I wanted to make you a little video. I've done this a few times now, and they're coming out at like 15 minutes. I want them to be like 5 minutes. So I want to show you what I'll be sending over. I want to mention a few things about it that may not be immediately apparent, and I guess I'll just demonstrate that it works and stuff. So there is the box. Here's the lid. You can see the color of the two, or I should say the colors of the two don't match perfectly, but they're in the same ballpark, and I think both look pretty good. Hopefully that works for you. Okay, I mentioned a couple blemishes with the dye job. This one does have, or I should say it used to have a couple areas like along two of the edges, one on the long, one on the short. That was like slightly lighter, but I actually can't find it anymore, so I guess maybe I fixed that. I noticed it, put it back in the dye, and I don't know if it evened out or what, but one way or another, I can't see it anymore. But it was somewhat like this one. This is the first one that I actually made for you. You see it's lighter down here. That one had a similar issue, not as pronounced though. This thing has got a couple dark patches. You can see sort of a line here. I think this is the worst of it. But the line roughly goes around the outside of the whole thing. It's pretty subtle. You know, maybe you wouldn't have even noticed it, but there it is, just in case. You know, that's something that's going to bug you. I'd rather know before I ship it, and then you can tell me, and I can make a new one, or you know, we can work something out. Whatever works best for both of us. Okay. To get a GoPro Hero 5 or 6 in there, you have to remove this protective lens cover. It is made to be removed, as far as I can tell. And there are a bunch of videos on YouTube of how to do it. But I'll just demonstrate real quick. So I'll put it back on. It's pretty tight, so it's not easy, especially at the beginning. But you just kind of pull on the lens. That helps, and twist to get it off. I used a crescent wrench to get it off, and that definitely helped. And once you take it off, unless you know you're planning to use this underwater, I'd probably just leave it off. Not a big deal. I also take this door off just because the door is kind of a piece of crap, so I take it off so that I don't have to keep fiddling with it. But it will fit inside the Crace with the door on there. Alright, so I'd like to demonstrate it working a little bit. Getting the GoPro in there, whatever. It's not the easiest thing in the world. I'm sure you'll get used to it. Sometimes when you're kind of tilting the GoPro in, you might hit one of the buttons, so just be aware of that, and you know, watch out and make sure that you don't accidentally turn on the GoPro. The rear lid, the window is off center purposely by 2 millimeters, and that's just because the LCD is also off center. So when I put the lid on, I aim to put the off center, or put the bias, or whatever you want to call it, to the left. The lid is reversible, so if you put it on backward, it doesn't matter. And you can still see the screen. It's not that big of a deal. Alright, so there it is, buttoned up. You don't have to torque these screws down. It will seal basically just so long as the lid is seated in the box. It should be sealed just as well as if these, you know, if you torque these screws down like crazy. Right, the buttons are maybe a little harder than you might expect to press, but if you press them with conviction, you know, they'll basically always work for you. So here's a shutter. There's no memory card in here, so I won't record, but so I'll hit it. It turns on no problem, and the power button. Um, why didn't it turn off? Oh, there it goes. Okay. I didn't hear the beep. So I'll turn it back on. And you can go through the modes. Start the recording, whatever the buttons do. But remember to press them, with conviction or whatever. I suppose I think it's kind of a good thing, you're not going to hit them accidentally. Except when you put the GoPro in. Sometimes it happens then. All right. So I'm already well past 5 minutes. Darn it. Okay, let's try to wrap this up. All the O-rings are greased. I personally use this stuff here. I searched for silicone grease on Amazon. This is what it came up with. Seemed reasonably priced, good reviews and stuff. So you may want to pick up a bottle of this. It does really make the lid easier to put on and remove, primarily remove. Sometimes it gets a little stuck in there without the grease. And I'm sure the longevity of the grease depends on your situation. The front lens has this on it. This is a kind of a smartphone. I think there's a kind of product they call liquid screen protector. This kind of might be in that genre of product. I'm not entirely sure. This is all in Japanese. So far as I can tell, this is only sold in Japan. But one way or another, this is the best oleophobic coating that I've found. I've tried a few, but I haven't tried any of the ones that are marketed as liquid screen protectors. So, maybe they're just as good. I don't know. But this is what I use. About $20. Comes in a tiny little eyedropper, which I find pretty hilarious. Especially because this thing's only like a third full, when you get it. But it does last many uses. I don't think I've ever reapplied a coating to any of my lenses. And they've seemed to have lasted in the coolant for quite a while. So, seems to be good stuff. If you find that your lens is not as oleophobic as you'd like it to be, or that it, maybe it's deteriorated or something, you can take the lens out, flip it around. Both sides are coated. And I suspect that the inside will probably have almost zero wear, so you should have almost a completely fresh side. But you might want to pick some of this up so that, the next time it deteriorates, you can refurbish it or whatever. All right, I'm sending this along. This is a 1/4 screw in a 3/8 shaft. And it's also got a 1/4 tapped hole in the bottom. This is for magnetic indicator bases. So put this into the tripod hole, this into the base, and then you can point the Crace, at whatever you want. These are the desiccant strips. There's 6 in here. The one and only time I used the strips actually when I was milling this. I used 2 strips, milled for, I think it was about 40 minutes. Or I should say I was in the mill for about 40 minutes. No condensation happened. The manufacturer says to make these reusable, to dry them out, you bake them for 5 minutes at 300 degrees Fahrenheit. So hopefully these work for you. They're super cheap. I got 24 for like $7.50 on Amazon. If you do need to remove the lenses, These are tools that will make it easier to get the rings out of there. They're just laser cut acrylic, and there's a series of holes in here. I like to use pin pliers, put them into the holes, and then I can grab the tool at the same time and use that to twist it out. But there are these rectangular holes for needle nose pliers too. And obviously one for the lens and one for the LCD windows. Right, and then there is a packet with one spare O-ring for every O-ring on the enclosure. There's one in here that might be a little bit, you might look at it and wonder what it is. Is this one here. It's got an ID of 1/4 inch, and that is for the integrated push to connect fitting. So there's an O-ring in there, and theoretically it could wear out or something, so you have a spare. The other two smallest ones, which have an ID of 3mm, those are for the buttons. There's one with an ID of 3.5mm. That is for the condensation mitigation hole. 27mm, that's for the lens LCD. 47mm for the lens LCD, the lens window. 47 for the LCD window. And this one, which I think it might be 67mm. Huh, that'd be funny. Kind of an accident. I can tell you the actual number for that in an email or something. But that is for the ring around the lid. Okay, I think that's about everything. 12 minutes. Well, hopefully that's good enough. Sorry well, maybe that wasn't that long-winded. Anyway, I hope you enjoy it. If you have feedback, please send it along, good and bad. I'll try not to rip me a new one, but if you feel like it, it probably will help me overall. So, yeah, I guess have at it. Anyway, cool. Thank you again, Sayer. Really appreciate it, and I'll talk to you later.